Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the JDC West 2023 International Business Based Presentation sponsored by KPMG. Before starting today, the JDC West Organization Committee would like to make a land acknowledgement. The University of Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan campus is located on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nations and the Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. We pledge ourselves to create a competition that celebrates the diverse cultures and history of the land. Thank you to our judges, from left to right, Pete, Nick, George, Stephanie, and Tyler. My name is Jazz, and I'll be the academic moderator for this presentation. Competitors will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presentators questions. Our academic timekeeper, uh, Margaret, will hold up time cues throughout the presentations and the question period. Judges will indicate their intent to ask questions through raising their hand. I, the presentation moderator, will call on them to ask their questions. Once the question period has concluded, the delegates will be escorted to leave the room. No questions or comments will be permitted from the audience at any time. Please ensure that your cell phones are turned to silent and that there are no talking amongst yourself or signaling to the computers for the presentation. Computers, you may begin.
From traditional Canadian Indigenous music to the European classical music to the rhythmic beats of the South African drums, culture has always inherently been tied with music. And we believe that when bringing music across the world in an industry such as yours, it is very vital to keep culture as a centerpiece when making decisions. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for being here today. My name is Dana, and I'm joined today by Stephen and Connor from CDS Consulting, and today we will be helping you make some decisions in your future expansions for success. Just as a brief overview of what we will be discussing today, we've identified a couple key issues and situations and recommendations for how to remedy these. First and foremost, the situation is how should the FAIR agency, or TFA as we will hear on throughout be referring to it as, facilitate its international expansion? And as a more secondary issue, how can TFA restore its team and its success post-COVID-19 pandemic? Now, our recommendations for these two situations would be to acquire Agence Lyon's SA, or as we will from here be calling it AL, in France through private investor funding and form a culture board to specialize services for cultural diversification. Now, by implementing our recommendation, you have a very high chance of seeing the impacts of an 8.4% revenue growth through the first year of international growth, as well as a 468,000 acquisition costs for AL. All finances throughout the course of this presentation will be used in Canadian dollars. Now, moving right into our situational analysis, as we previously stated, the key issue that we've identified is following the negative impacts of COVID on the music and entertainment industry, how can TFA facilitate future growth through international expansion? Most looking at into a little bit of the insights into the company. Under the service is we're a booking agency that connects artists and vendors, currently with 200 active artists. Under the operations, we understand that previous festival experience has attracted from 15 to 50,000 attendees for each one. However, we have identified that the back office currently is short-staffed at the moment. Now, some firm-specific advantages, or FSAs, as we have here, is your broad network of connections, as well as that revenues that have grown $3 million in the past 3 years. We understand that during COVID there was a downtick, but the growth has been extremely impressive. Now, what is important about all this information? Essentially, these are some key takeaways to consider. Through TFA's personal connections, this can translate into future expansion and be used when moving internationally. Furthermore, restoring the team in any ways that means would be ideal for future festivals as well as for its expansion. And finally, the rapid growth in revenues over the past 3 years really exemplifies the resilience of TFA and its preparedness for future growth. Now, who is affected by the operations? First and foremost, of course, is TFA agents. Their main concerns are their job security as well as meaningful connections, creating these meaningful connections between artists and venues. The second stakeholder would be the artists. Their main concerns being that the venues that they perform in are located in strategic locations and the connections they are given are catered to them and their audience. And finally, the venues and promoters are the third key stakeholder. They are concerned with the artists being booked, that they will be diverse and well received in the area, as well as they are looking for more sales of tickets. As a brief outlook of the industry, there are three key external factors that need to be considered when making decisions. First and foremost would be the internet. Now, the rise of the internet and streaming services has resulted in lots of physical sales for artists, such as in CDs or even vinyl records. And streaming and live performances are currently the primary sources of revenue. However, these live performances are offering some opportunities. As in 2021, we see that the industry spend per capita for the media and entertainment industry was $3,018 in North America, $1,646 in Western Europe, and $112 in Africa. These are in thousands. And furthermore, these are projected to exceed results prior to COVID by 2024. Now, COVID has been a key external factor in changing the industry. First and foremost, by temporarily putting the industry on a hiatus. And even now, we are still seeing some of these effects and bookings being canceled due to COVID contractions from members of the artists that will be performing. Now, what does this mean for your company? Of course, rising trends in live performances post-pandemic do hold opportunities for restoration of any costs that have been lost over the course of the pandemic. Now, just a brief overview of where you are right now. You have seen great success in North America. There has been financial growth over the years from the live performances, and you have established yourself working with over 200 artists. And you are going to have international growth. You're going to broaden your revenue base through expansion, and finally, you are going to increase diversification of artists. This has been a brief look of where you are going, and now Stephen will guide you through how you're going to get there.
Thank you, Dana, for looking into the situation. So now when looking into how you're going to make your decision, we laid out 3 criteria that you primarily need to focus on. You need to capitalize the high growth after the pandemic within the entertainment industry. You want to expand internationally, moving outside of that North America that you're currently in, as well as you need to maintain and utilize those human connections throughout the industry, which are continually changing, and the more you can connect with people, the better you can adapt. So once looking at those connections, we look at how can we continue to grow. We believe that acquiring Agence Lyon, or AL, will acquire their current roster of artists, which is going to greatly increase your instantaneously, as well as going to utilize their European-wide connections. That utilizing those interpersonal relationships are very important within your industry. It does come with the con, as because you're not doing any joint ventures outside of the country, it comes with the liability that every event you throw is on yourself. But when looking at the joint venture with Zulu Entertainment within South Africa that you proposed to us, it does come with the year-round festival weather, which allows you to throw multiple festivals throughout the year, unlike in Europe, where many of the seasons don't allow for outdoor festivals. And it comes with split liability, which I again mentioned is a con of acquiring AL. But the projected market size of South Africa is much lower than the projected market size of Western Europe, as well as the low vaccination rates within South Africa pose a problem with the current COVID-19 precautions that everyone is facing. So once making the decision to acquire AL, what are you going to do for your next move? We believe that you need to focus on growth beyond just the acquisition. This sets a foot for capitalization on the future projection of $50.8 million, as well as increased investments beyond the purchase are a deficit to that option, since you need to invest more capital past that purchase. You don't want to maintain focus on your current market feelings. This is gonna make you stagnant in a constantly changing industry, although it does come with collecting their current profits. But we feel that focusing on growth beyond the acquisition is gonna be the most beneficial when looking at these alternatives on what you're gonna do after just the acquisition. Once you've decided to continue growth beyond the acquisition, how are you gonna do that? We believe that appointing a cultural board allows for multiple perspectives throughout the region of Western Europe, since the region is greatly differs country to country based on the preferences of their locals. We believe that the cultural board will allow for implementation of all cultures when making your decisions for your festivals. That does come with the cultural board in Western Europe does have a lower corruption index when compared to North America, where you're currently working in, but we feel that the cultural board will mitigate that. As well as we did look at expanding through Eastern Europe. It does come with close proximity once you enter Eastern Europe, meaning that transportation of your knowledge from country to country becomes a lot easier. But the 6.8% revenue growth is lackluster compared to many of the other revenue growth, as well as the lower vaccination rate compared to Western Europe. So once we've decided to make the cultural board, that's your final step. So now when we're going to look at an overview of the recommendations we're proposing to you, it's going to come in two phases. Phase one is going to be to acquire AL or Agence Lyon and obtain financing. After that, you're going to move on to phase two, where you're going to appoint that cultural board, develop events focused on the organizational views that you've bestowed, as well as the cultures that you want to implement within. Now breaking down phase one, looking at acquiring AL, it's going to be a purchase of 390,000 Canadian dollars, as we mentioned previously, at a 4x EBITDA. This is going to come at a 20% premium on top of that 4x EBITDA, as well as maintaining, you're going to want to maintain their 7 current agents within the company. You're going to keep the key management, as well as you're going to reduce the redundancies when needed. You're not going to need all of their staff, so you want to minimize those costs too. Next, how are you going to do this? You're going to need to obtain financing. We decided that for you, a private investment is the best option, since it comes with that 2.5% interest rate over a 5-year term and the lump sum payment at the end over the other option of annual payments through conventional financing. Now breaking down phase two, when you appoint that cultural board, you're going to appoint Sasha Rose as vice president. Zach Bird is going to move to France, allowing for your company to maintain its values in this new international market. You're going to focus on having the cultural board have all demographics spoken for. This is going to ensure that, again, when you're making these new events or signing these new artists, the culture that they're working in are going to be spoken for, and they're going to know how to capitalize on it the best. And then after you appoint that culture board, you're going to need to move on to plan music festivals within France and Belgium, primarily, or the countries we're looking at within Western Europe. Using the cultural board to plan these festivals, you're going to plan festivals in France initially. This is to develop the teamwork of the cultural board, ensuring that they work at maximum capacity. Once you've developed the French festival, you're going to move on to a Belgian festival. This is where the largest market projection size is at 11.8 million, as well as it has the second highest revenue growth over all the countries looked at within Western Europe. Now, how is this going to affect your stakeholders? Well, for your agents, they're going to expect new opportunities to expand their connections and as well have a stable job to go to at the end of the day. Your artists, they're going to be booked continuously and strategically to reach those new audiences that your cultural board knows are best for them, as well as the venues and promotions. They're going to see a diverse booking to draw in new customers as well as increase sales, again, capitalizing on that diverse culture within Western Europe. And now, since I've looked at breaking down the recommendation, Connor's going to walk you through how you're going to implement it and the impacts it'll have for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephen. Now, you might have a few questions. How long is this going to take and how much is it going to cost? We're going to be looking at a 3-year implementation timeline covering both phases. Firstly, we want to start here with an executive meeting. We want you to communicate as senior leaders on what you want to do with this project, and if it's something you can consider moving forward. After this, we want you to discuss the goals of this acquisition of AL and make sure that it's perfect for your needs. Following this, you want to look at those staff limitations We know for your company that you've seen a lot of lower staff levels due to COVID-19. You're not at the levels you were before, and we want to get you there. Following this, we want you to meet with that private investment consortium that was willing to help you out and discuss conditions of the financing. We believe a group that can really help your company will be that consortium. They'll be very well knowledge and versed in that space and can really help companies like yours that might not have that knowledge yet. Then we want, with their help, for you to create a competitive bid using more of those relevant multiples. The COVID-19 numbers have gone down. Some of those values have come up. So we want to make sure that we're giving them a competitive offer that will help them go with that decision. Following that, I want you to meet with the AL to present that bid and then work with them on that part. And then over the coming months, work with them and any sort of conditions need to be met. We'd like you to move forward with that. On to phase two now. So that was all depending on the acquisition. Now phase two is more focused on that culture board and meeting these new areas that you're going to be working in. We know that Western Europe, the music situation there is almost very cultural. It really tends to, the different areas that AL already does business in will have a lot of different music tastes. So we want to have you send a TFA representative to control some of those operations in their headquarters in Paris. That being Zach Bird, the VP, he should have a lot of commitment to the company and will be willing to do it. Following that, I want to point ahead of the cultural board. We feel that Sasha Rose, you are very motivated to do this, and looking forward, there'll be a lot of growth opportunities there for you. So some more relevant staff to the AL board. So we want to move those relevant staff members over there from AL to your company. So we want to focus on France and Belgium. So a lot of those staff members that work primarily in France and Belgium, so we'll take the focus on the members we want to move along. Following that, just due to the acquisition here, there will be quite a few staff redundancies. So we need to project those moving forwards, create some compensation packages, and going to have to let go of the relevant staff members. We know that your company is understaffed, but by acquiring another company, there will still be redundancies that need to be accounted for, and those employees need to be taken care of as well. After that, we do want to finally just plan that very first international music concert, and then following the next 2 years after that, so you're paying off that loan to that large company to continue to have venues and starting to continue money. Now looking at some of the financials here, just a few assumptions. Discount rate, 10%, growth rate of 8.9% over that 5-year period in Western Europe. And then we did assume that private investor consortium can assist with the acquisition, that there will be a key player that can really give you some advice and help you with that. So our costs, one-time costs at 4.3 million, annual profit repayment. So that will be that 10% at the end. The revenues that will be repaid will be 1.2 million. So the current cost will be 800,000 for the cultural board salaries. All these are all projected over that 5-year period of the loan. Now moving on to just a small graph here. We do have the revenue gain through the AO acquisition over the next five years. This will be during that time that 10% of revenues will be taken at the end. And through that, we were able to get an NPV of 2.5 million and return on your investment of just around 51%. So the impacts. In this case here, a couple of KPIs and milestones. So we want to see an 8.4% revenue growth from years 2023 to 2024. We feel that that's very possible for your company, taking into account that you are growing rapidly in North America, as well as new ventures now in another country. We do want, by the end of that 5-year period, to have 10 international concerts completed. That will be a good starting point for your company, just to get an idea of if it's been successful and how it's going over there in France and the surrounding countries. Finally, that cost of the acquisition there of AL, we want it to be just around 468K. We feel that that's a perfectly fine number, taking into account that that 12.5% that was before pre and post pandemic. We want to give a 20% premium over that to make it extremely easy to work with. So, looking at some risks and mitigations. So, if they're unable to pay debt, we want to make sure that increased revenues from retention will offset that debt. If there's any backlash to those layoffs, we want comprehensive severance packages and a lower corruption percentage index. when the culture board will manage concerns and correctly direct decisions. So having that culture board will really help with the lower production units. We have a lot of individuals that can really work with that. But now moving along to some of the future considerations. So we know with the online environment and moving forward, music has become so focused on being, on your phones, on your computers. So we want to potentially offer in the future online code events to lower those cancellation losses. So in the event that this occurs, then we can go ahead and lower ticket prices and give them an online experience. And along with that, Italy was the number one profit revenue option there, so we can look towards Italy for future development as well. Now Dana will look over everything once more and conclude it for you.
Presented us with a couple situations, mainly how we can facilitate international expansion in these trying times. Our recommendation will help you succeed, will help you have that international expansion, will include that culture component, which is so vital when bringing music around the world, and will yield incredible impacts for you and for your company and for everybody who you work with. Thank you so much for listening.
Your second reading, the cultural board recently discussed with your, and you give me some more information on why someone is joining the cultural board, what would attract them, not early reports and all.
Yeah, thank you, George. So for the most part, we do want to have this as an internal hire process. We want to have Sasha being the head of that, but also taking into account all the diverse employees that the company has. So we want to make sure that as a company, there's so many different areas with acquiring AL. We want to make sure that we can cover all those areas with Belgium, Spain, as well as France, and so many others. So we want to make sure that we can hire some employees to be able to join that cultural board. And also that we'll be able to communicate their beliefs, their cultures, and make an impact on communications.
So in your recommendation of expanding the identified cultural considerations, but another major sort of barrier I perceive is the language. So how did you think about incorporating language barriers on the country? Were there any other cultural barriers you adapted?
Yes. So thank you very much for the question, Tyler. So when looking at TFA's expansion within Western Europe, especially with France and buying the AL, since we are predominantly hiring from AL, we feel that the language barrier wouldn't be as drastic since a lot of our employees would be coming from that AL, since they have those connections throughout all of Western Europe, since AL operates there.
That's nice to see you include the detail in the cost of the implementation phase. Now, I see there's a lot of cash flow that was coming through early after launch. Did you think about any risks related to that? And can you talk through that?
Yes, we did see that the company itself had taken on debt before, so we did see some risk there, but for the company itself, we feel that a lot of these projections were projected a little bit higher than, especially the cost. We wanted to, if we go to attendance A, for example, I used just a lot of broad numbers here that can kind of give a generalized salary for a lot of these executives. I wanted to make sure that we did project high and gave you a little bit of a higher number, but in the case that financing does become an issue, it is understood that they are quite high.
You've got a lot riding with this application. You've got a lot riding with communication. First event that you have when like a flywheel, right? It's harder to move at the start before it gets really going. How are you going to ensure, how is the culture board, what should it focus on in order to make sure that your first event is successful?
So first and foremost, we're confident that the culture board will be able to bridge, as we previously said, any kind of cultural concerns, language barriers as well as those concerns. In terms of how the actual operations will be conducted of creating the festival, that will lie in the experienced agents and the hard work of AL, who have experience performing these duties and executing this kind of festival. Those will be the main actors in pulling that through. However, when it comes to the cultural board, they will be there more so as advisors, as helping acclimate with the people in France.
Kind of the opportunity presented, did you consider any other markets?
We did actually. We also considered the Middle East as well as Eastern Europe. However, with ongoing conflicts and such as political, socioeconomical issues that have been ongoing in both of those regions, we considered them a little bit too high risk for you to move into at this current time. But those definitely down the road could be some future considerations as well.